Life is a big school. We all have to learn.
The ancient Greek world was a realm of fickle gods and goddesses, where mortals were mere pawns in their games. It was a place of both beauty and danger, where the heroes who dared to challenge the divine were immortalized in legend. On the island of Argos, a tale of destiny and tragedy unfolded. It was here that King Perseus of Argos received a prophecy that his own grandson would one day bring about his demise.
Your grandson shall be the cause of your downfall.
Fearful of this foretold fate, the king took drastic measures to prevent it from coming to fruition. He locked up his daughter Danae in a tower made of bronze, where she was kept away from the world and any potential suitors. But even such an extreme measure could not thwart the machinations of the gods, for it was the mighty Zeus himself who took an interest in Danae. Despite the king's efforts to prevent Danae from having a child, Zeus found a way to enter her tower disguised as a shower of golden rain. Danae was enchanted by the dazzling display and marveled as the golden rain transformed into the god of thunder himself.
Behold, I am Zeus, the king of the gods. I have come bearing a gift, Danae. Our son will be a hero, feared by many and revered by all.
Despite her initial fear and confusion, Danae became enamored with the god and soon found herself pregnant with his child. When Perseus learned of the pregnancy, he was furious. He had gone to great lengths to prevent such an outcome, and now his fears seemed to be coming to fruition. He could not bear the thought of his own bloodline leading to his downfall. In a fit of rage, Perseus locked Danae and her newborn son Perseus in a chest and cast them into the sea. However, the gods had other plans for the mother and child, and they miraculously survived the treacherous journey. As the waves crashed upon the shore of Seriphos, the sight of Danae and Perseus filled the fisherman named Dictys with an overwhelming sense of compassion. He knew that the gods had bestowed upon him a great gift, and he promised to care for the weary mother and child with the utmost kindness and love, as if they were his own flesh and blood. Perseus grew up in the humble abode of the fisherman Dictys, alongside his mother Danae, who remained wary of any male attention. Dictys had become a true father figure to Perseus, teaching him how to fish, hunt, and work the land. Despite their modest lifestyle, the family of three was happy, and Perseus had grown into a strong and capable young man with a keen sense of justice and a compassionate heart. As Perseus reached adulthood, he became known throughout the island for his bravery and strength. Polydectes, the king of Seriphos, took notice of Perseus and began to lavish attention on him, hoping to win the favor of Danae, who he had fallen in love with. However, Danae remained closed off, still haunted by the memory of her past and the prophecy that had been foretold. Polydectes, frustrated by Danae's reluctance, devised a cunning plan to get rid of Perseus. He announced his intention to marry another woman and demanded that all the men of Seriphos bring him a gift in tribute to the occasion. Knowing that Perseus had no wealth, Polydectes hoped to use this opportunity to send him on a mission that was sure to be his demise. As Polydectes assigned Perseus to slay Medusa, he embarked on his perilous journey with a heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. He knew the danger that awaited him, but he also knew that the gods had bestowed upon him powerful gifts to aid him on his quest. With his sword at his side and his eyes fixed on his goal, Perseus traversed the vast and treacherous terrain, braving one obstacle after another. He scaled steep mountains, crossed raging rivers, battled fierce beasts, and outsmarted cunning foes. But nothing could deter him from his ultimate goal, to slay Medusa and claim her head as his prize. As he drew nearer to his destination, Perseus was approached by a wise old woman who offered him sage advice. She cautioned him of the perils that lay ahead and presented him with a gleaming shield crafted by none other than Athena herself. The goddess of wisdom and war had appeared to him in her divine form, saying,
Anyone who meets Medusa's gaze will be petrified, but you can catch a glimpse of her through this polished bronze shield as if looking in a mirror.
Perseus was filled with gratitude for Athena's gift, but he knew he needed more to complete his mission. Continuing on his journey, he encountered Hermes, the messenger of the gods, who recognized the young hero's mission and gifted him with a sharp sickle that would enable him to cut off Medusa's head.
Take this sharp sickle, crafted by the hands of the divine, and wield it with the strength and courage befitting a hero on a quest to vanquish a foe as formidable as Medusa.
With the gifts of the gods in his possession, Perseus pressed on, following the clues and advice he had gathered. He knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but he was determined to see his quest through to the end. As Perseus pressed on in his quest, he came across the Graiai, 3 sisters who were known for their unusual appearance. They shared one eye and one tooth between them. It was said that they were daughters of Phorcys and Ceto, and were entrusted with precious secrets. Perseus knew that he needed to extract valuable information from them to complete his mission. When Perseus encountered the Graiai, they refused to give him any information about how to find the nymphs of the north, who could provide him with the tools he needed to defeat Medusa. So, Perseus took their single eye and tooth, and would only agree to return them in exchange for the location of the nymphs and the items he required. Despite their initial resistance, the sisters eventually relented and gave Perseus the information he sought, and a magical cap of darkness that could make him invisible to his enemies, hoping that it would convince him to return their eye and tooth. With his new gifts and knowledge, Perseus continued on his journey, feeling invigorated by the thought that he was not alone on his perilous mission. Perseus set out on a long and treacherous journey to reach the nymphs of the north. Along the way, he encountered many obstacles and challenges, but he persevered. Finally, he arrived at the remote location where the nymphs resided. The nymphs were initially hesitant to provide Perseus with the magical sandal he sought. However, after hearing his story and recognizing his determination, they decided to help him. They gave Perseus the magic sandal, which allowed him to fly and move quickly, enabling him to outmaneuver his enemies and cover long distances with ease. With the sandal on his foot, Perseus continued his journey with renewed vigor, feeling empowered knowing that he was not alone in his perilous mission. Though the journey to acquire the sandal was difficult, it was well worth it in the end. Perseus's heart pounded with increasing intensity as he approached the dreaded lair of Medusa, knowing that success depended on his quick and decisive action. Once a beautiful woman with golden hair, Medusa had been cursed by Athena and transformed into a terrifying creature. Her once lustrous locks now writhed with venomous snakes that hissed and struck at any who dared approach. Her skin was pale and mottled, and her eyes burned with an otherworldly red glow. Her mouth was filled with jagged teeth, and her tongue flicked out like that of a serpent. Her muscular body boasted razor-sharp claws that promised death to those who crossed her path. Her mere presence exuded a sinister aura that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest warriors. The lair itself was a place of darkness and dread, a desolate wasteland where nothing thrived and no creature dared to tread. The entrance was guarded by fierce beasts with cruel, intelligent eyes that spoke of their master's power and malice. As Perseus drew closer, he could feel the weight of Medusa's deadly gaze upon him, capable of instantly petrifying a man. He treaded carefully, knowing that any mistake could lead to his doom. The lair was littered with the remains of past victims, frozen in stone and forever trapped in their final moments of terror. Skulls of animals and men alike adorned the walls, and the stench of death and decay filled the air. Finally, Perseus laid eyes upon the monstrous Medusa herself. Her skin was rough and scaly, her hair a mass of writhing snakes. Her eyes glowed with malevolence, and her mouth was filled with razor-sharp teeth, promising death to any who challenged her. Perseus knew that he had to act quickly, that he could not let Medusa's deadly gaze catch him off guard. He raised his shield and caught sight of her in the reflection, her serpentine hair writhing and hissing.
Medusa, your end has come, for I have come to deliver justice for your victims. Come forth and face your fate!
You dare challenge me, mortal! Prepare to meet your doom!
Medusa hissed, her eyes glowing red with malice. Perseus circled around her, trying to avoid looking directly into her eyes. Medusa lashed out with her razor-sharp claws, but Perseus dodged and countered with a swift strike of his sickle. The Gorgon recoiled in pain, but quickly regained her composure and unleashed a barrage of venomous snakes at Perseus. Perseus deftly avoided the snakes and continued his assault, but Medusa was a formidable opponent. She moved with a speed and agility that belied her monstrous form, and her gaze was a constant threat. Perseus knew that he had to be careful, that one misstep could mean his doom, but he was determined to succeed. He had come too far and fought too hard to let Medusa escape justice. With a mighty roar, he charged forward and landed a fatal blow, severing her head from her body. The Gorgon's body crumpled to the ground, and her snakes writhed and hissed in their death throes. Perseus stood victorious, but the battle had taken its toll. He was battered and bruised, his armor dented and stained with blood. But he had prevailed, and justice had been served for Medusa's victims. Breathless and weary from the fight, Perseus emerged victorious. He claimed Medusa's head as his prize, and with it, he set out to fulfill his next mission, to save his mother and the people of Seriphos from the treacherous Polydectes and his schemes. As Perseus sailed away from the island of the Gorgons, he knew that his adventures were far from over. He had fulfilled his destiny as the slayer of Medusa, but his name would be forever remembered as one of the greatest heroes of Greek mythology. Little did Perseus know that his next adventure would take him to the island of Seriphos, where a new chapter of his destiny would unfold. Here, he would face challenges that would test his courage and his honor, and ultimately shape his legacy as a king and a hero.
Join us in the next chapter of the legend of Perseus, as we follow his other adventures and witness his triumphs and tragedies.